Dungeons and Dragons. Let's talk about it. Hey everyone, welcome to Mr. Teach Film Preach, and if you're a film lover like I am and you learn from films as much as I do, then you are in the right place. If you're in the right place, click like down below and subscribe to my channel. Also, while you're down there, comment what did you think of Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. Let me know with your thoughts and comments down below, and while you're down there, click like and subscribe to my channel for more content. Also, don't forget to hit that bell button to notify you when I've released more videos. Today we're talking about the 2023 fantasy epic adventure film, Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. Directed by John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein, a charming bard teams up with a barbarian warrior, a sorcerer, and a druid and embark on an epic quest to retrieve a lost relic that will help them retrieve someone that was stolen from them when they run afoul of the wrong people in this magical fantasy world. Based on the role-playing game Dungeons & Dragons, which is probably one of the most popular role-playing action game out there in the last kind of 2 decades, this is a game that has taken off and become huge. I have people in my family that love to play it. Shout out to my cousin. I have friends of mine that are hugely into it, even have a podcast all about Dungeons and Dragons. I myself am not really a D&D fan. Not that I don't like it or anything, I just never really got into it. Like, I saw more people playing like Pokemon or Magic the Gathering, or people playing Pogs. That was sort of where I was in school, so I didn't really see a lot of D&D. But since high school, I know that this has become such a huge phenomenon. I'm really curious to hear people who are a fan of the game D&D, what they thought of this movie. Did they give enough D&D fan service, but also still not being confusing for the everyday person like myself going to check out a fantasy adventure film? John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein, who are the writers of great comedic films like Horrible Bosses, Game Night, and of course John Francis Daley from one of my favorite TV shows of all time, Freaks and Geeks, young Sam Weir. In an episode of Freaks and Geeks, him and his friends played Dungeons and Dragons. I know on Stranger Things, the TV show, they also played Dungeons and Dragons.
I am Brutalitops, the magician. Magic user, baby, what?
And so it has become this really big pop culture phenomenon. Now, the things that did get me excited about this is, first of all, I'm a fantasy fan. I love Lord of the Rings. I love Harry Potter. Yes, I'm that kind of nerd.
I'm an elf, not a nerd.
Also, Chris Pine being cast as the lead role. I mean, anything with Chris Pine, I'm there for it. I'm a huge fan of his. I've been a big fan of his, even more so because he starred in one of my favorite movies of the last 10, 15 years, which is called Hell or High Water. And if you haven't checked it out, it is a phenomenal country western sort of film set in modern day times, but you have to check it out. The rest of the cast is great, from Justice Smith playing like a really funny sorcerer Simon, to the great, amazing Michelle Rodriguez. Love her kicking ass in every role she does. She's just got such a great presence on screen, and she's perfect fitted for this role of this female barbarian warrior, and I loved her in this role.
Okay, chop it off.
Oh, we got him now!
And Hugh Grant also being the sort of devious con man in this film. If you don't care about the characters, it's really hard to get invested in this film because the story isn't actually that in-depth in the end. I thought it was going to be a little bit more complicated and complex. All the different types of D&D campaigns that are out there for the game, I thought this world would have been a lot deeper and nerd fest. Like, it would have been so crazy and I just wouldn't be able to understand anything.
Nerd.
Actually, I thought the writers and directors did a great job of grounding it and making it accessible to everyone, not just fans of D&D, but for people who just want to check out a fantasy action film. And overall, mostly this movie does its job pretty well. Came in with maybe low expectations and left with a really fun time. I laughed a bunch of times. I thought the humor mostly worked.
Sounds lovely.
Quite the opposite.
I know, I was being ironic.
I find irony is a blade that cuts he who wields it most especially.
You're not a lot of fun, are you?
When they use practical sets and practical locations, I thought the film actually looked really great. Cinematography was actually not that bad. And considering the films that have been out there recently and the amount of ridiculous, stupid, over-the-top CGI, this film was somehow able to balance the ridiculousness and the over-the-top humor and sometimes the over-the-top CGI with some actually good characters and great chemistry and a fun story. Kind of feels almost like a Pirates of the Caribbean vibe. Monty Python meets a fantasy Lord of the Rings, where it's a lot of humor and a lot of shtick, and they know that they're playing into the ridiculousness of it. They're not trying to go for something too serious, and they made a smart choice with the tone of this film. For me, the reason that this movie does stay glued together is the cast of characters and the chemistry that they all have. You care for both the bard and the barbarian and the druid and their sort of bond, and Simon. Cast of characters, if they're not there, I think this film knocked down a peg or two just based on the chemistry of those great actors. The biggest thing is the CGI. It wasn't like Lord of the Rings Two Towers level of CGI and visual effects, but it also wasn't a Hobbit, the Battle of the Five Armies bad. But it had some moments where you could tell they had green screen parts where it looked like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania that came out recently, where I felt at times they were just standing in a big green room. It didn't pull me out of the movie, and it didn't destroy the film at all, but there were times where I was thinking, yeah, I wish they just spent a bit more time or had maybe a little bit of a bigger budget to develop some of those CGI effects. The plot of the film was a little bit thin. It really is like a heist film. Most of the movie is based around planning on getting this helmet. I thought that's great, like setting that in a fantasy world, but this is no Steven Soderbergh's Ocean's 11.
3 casinos.
The story itself isn't as well developed or as in-depth emotionally as I maybe wanted it to be. But again, this film isn't going for that tone. It feels much more, like I said, in the realm of Monty Python.
None shall pass. What? None shall pass.
The 2-hour, 14-minute runtime, I felt a little bit as I was sitting there. They should have cut when they didn't. I think that 2-hour mark would have been the perfect sort of time frame for this film. Again, a small thing, but something I did notice. Overall though, I had a great time with this film. I had a lot of fun. I was thoroughly entertained from start to finish. They're great characters. There's lots of laughs. There's some good action, some great stunt work, and I enjoy these actors in these roles. It is one of those movies that I feel like you should be in there with a crowd or a bunch of people and just have a good time. I'm gonna go ahead and give Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves a B. So what did you think of Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves? I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments down below. And while you're down there, click like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for checking out Mr. Teach Film Preach. Come back and check out some other videos like double feature of Shazam! Fury of the Gods and Scream 6, and my reaction to the 2023 Academy Awards. Have a great day, everyone. Stay focused, stay awesome, and as always, let's get taught.